Adventure racing introduced me to paddling. Like most kids, I had spent a bit of time in a canoe growing up. Not much, though. The only real memory was a family trip to northwest Iowa. My cousin Brian and I had paddled out to a small island, maybe a mile or so from camp. The water was calm, and a slight breeze at our back made the trip a real treat. Brian had some paddling experience. He and his father had taken a few trips to the Boundary Waters canoe area wilderness in Minnesota. I believe this was my maiden voyage. They gave me a few basic pointers, explaining how your hand goes on top of the paddle, the best way to slip your paddle into the water, and the proper exit point. A few strokes on your left, a few on the right, repeat. Brian would handle keeping us on course from the rear of the boat. There was no mention of fore, aft, starboard, or port. Maiden canoe voyages were the stuff of left, right, front, and back. Arriving at the little island, we were Sir Edmund Hillary, Roald Amundsen, Neil Armstrong, great explorers. The first to set foot on this faraway land. Beaching our aluminum vessel, stepping into the clear, chilly, bluish-green waters, and steadying the boat for my trusted companion, I was feeling quite full of myself. There was an innocence to it, though, a sort of self-amazement. Did I really just paddle from that distant shore to here? Me? The city kid who reluctantly came along on this trip in the first place? Per Brian's instructions, I steadied the boat, watching as he stepped slowly and deliberately down the center of our vessel so he wouldn't topple it. As he exited the front of the canoe, we pulled the now much lighter craft onto the beach. Time to explore our newfound island. Wonder filled me and questions raced through my head. What might lurk beyond the small sandy beach we stood on? Were bears hiding beyond our view? Are there bears in Iowa? As I was fairly certain there weren't, it felt a bit like the boogeyman. Of course, in the safety and light of day, the boogeyman is a silly concept. But when darkness falls and you hear a bump in the night, suddenly what seemed so silly an hour ago has a bit more teeth. This felt similar. Bears were an almost laughable idea from the distant shore, but we were no longer on the distant shore. This was uncharted territory, and once we were among the towering trees, who knew what dangers lurked? Brian took the lead as we began our exploration. Armed with machetes made of found tree branches, we were prepared for all matters of bushwhacking and, if necessary, self-defense. Young minds are such fertile ground. Just add adventure and watch what sprouts. We were certain an indigenous tribe called this place home, and we hoped to be the first to encounter them. Brian joked that hopefully they were not of the headhunting variety. We were almost certain they would not be, but even if they were, a couple of young kids' heads would probably be of little trophy value. We were more excited by the possibilities of witnessing a tribal dance, meeting a medicine man, and returning back to camp with painted faces and necklaces proving our honorary status within the tribe. The island was a lush environment. The forest canopy shielded much of the sky, which, unbeknownst to us, was beginning to cloud a bit. I hoped Brian was paying attention to our steps, as I realized I had been following him aimlessly and the forest didn't offer a clear path to guide our return. Being the rookie of the crew, I was not going to question his plans or abilities. My thoughts were interrupted as he stopped suddenly, his gaze intently focused just into the trees to the right. "No way! Look at that!" he exclaimed, running a few quick steps as if whatever it was might escape. As Brian reached down to retrieve his great find, I could see an ivory-white tip just above the tall grass of the forest floor. The skull was a perfect white, bleached by the sun for who knows how long, and the 8 antlers, 4 per side, were almost perfectly symmetrical. What a score this was! Proof of our adventure and, more importantly, evidence that we were clearly explorers of the highest degree. Brian put the beast's skull above his head like a ceremonial headdress. We concocted stories of the animal's demise. Perhaps the carcass was still near, hidden by the beast that had slain it. If so, we shouldn't dally long, or we'd risk a similar fate. Could it be that the tribe had hunted the great buck, interested only in its meat and skins for subsistence? I recalled my stepfather, a great hunter in his own right, saying, while field dressing a nice fat doe, "You can't eat the horn, son." Or had they seen our arrival from the distant shore and left the headdress as a gift, a sign of peace and welcome to the young explorers? We especially liked that idea.